Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
What's up, Hokie Nation? And welcome into episode 488 of the Tech Sideline podcast. After 2 months, Virginia Tech has a new athletic director. His name is Brian White from FAU. We're going to break all that down and much more in episode 488 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. And we record on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026 from our Tech Solutions studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember, like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our lead analyst and columnist, Chris Coleman. Across the way is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. And we are so thrilled you could join us here on your Tuesday afternoon. David Cunningham is down in South Florida right now enjoying the World Cup, so he will not be here in attendance, but we will get his thoughts later in the week. But guys, it's finally here. You know, the last couple weeks and the last couple months, all we've talked about is presidential search at Virginia Tech and mainly the athletic director search. And I think for the longest time, we were like, think it'll be in place by ACC kickoff, obviously by football season. June 30th was a date that was thrown around there a little bit as well, because that's with Babcock's last day as the athletic director. But a week in advance, Virginia Tech has their new AD. Brian White takes over after spending the last 8 years at FAU down in the American Conference. We will start with a blank slate. What is your overall take on the Hokies' new athletic director and his time coming here to Virginia Tech?
I think it's a sensible hire. I think he's a guy who grew up, obviously, in a family of administrators, coaches. Even if you throw out his experience as an athletic director, this is a guy who, just based on family connections, is always going to be up to date on what's going on in college athletics. And but he's got 8 years as experience as an athletic director himself. He's still young, like 42 is young for an athletic director. So he's got a lot of experience, but yet he's still young enough to where he can be adaptable. And most of his tenure at Florida Atlantic has come in an era where you've got to be constantly adapting and pivoting, sometimes on a year-to-year basis, sometimes on a semester-to-semester basis with new rules changes and just the way the landscape is and things like that. So yeah, I just think he's going to be the probably most experienced 42-year-old athletic director in the country, just in terms of his own experience, but also growing up in the household that he grew up in. So I think it's a very sensible hire for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I think the word that comes to mind is pedigree. You look at his dad, Kevin White, athletic director at many places, Arizona State, Notre Dame, Duke. His brother Danny is at Tennessee right now. Another brother is the Georgia basketball coach. So this is a family that's been around college athletics forever. I mean, he's grown up in it. This has been his entire life, is being around college athletics, and a couple different stops along the way. Yeah, he doesn't have the power conference experience, but I don't think you were hiring somebody that was going to have power conference experience for this particular job. At least, the candidates that we were hearing that were finalists for this thing, none of them had that sort of experience. So, you hire an up-and-comer, you look at some of the stuff he's done, it directly relates to some of the stuff the athletic director will have to do here. He secured a naming rights deal on the stadium. Now, I don't know, does the CEO of Hokie Ventures do that? Right. Does the athletic director, do both of them do that? I could imagine it being a partnership. He's worked with Playfly before. That's a Hokie partner here as well. Upgraded some of the fan amenities, reduced concession pricing. I think they had at the stadium cabanas that they had on the field, which a lot of people on the site read as cannabis. They mentioned on the Tech Sideline, like, I read that as cannabis. I'm like, well, that would increase the enjoyment of the game as well, I think, and perhaps increase concession sales.
I've always been in favor of putting a party deck on top of the south end zone, but I didn't exactly have that in mind.
No.
Well, I mean, they've tried putting little things on the field. First of all, there's just not a lot of space in Lane Stadium on the sidelines. So I think you'd have to do something farther up in the stands, and perhaps that's some future Lane Stadium renovation. But he has some experience doing that. So I think some of the things that he'll be asked to do here, it makes a lot of sense, because he's done them previously at Florida Atlantic with some success.
Were you guys surprised in the slightest? I know his name was floated out there a little bit. He was in David Teal's article a couple weeks ago, but I think, Matt Rome at JMU is somebody that got a lot of attention. Chance Miller at Coastal Carolina got a lot of attention. Those are probably the don't want to speak for you guys. Probably the two guys I saw floated most on social media. Obviously, Matt Roan had the connection playing here for a year at Virginia Tech. He's from Pulaski County. Chance Miller was the deputy at South Carolina when Shane Beamer, obviously early in his tenure there. So were you surprised in the slightest? It maybe wasn't one of those two, and particularly Brian White.
Those were the only two names I heard throughout the entire process, which shows that Virginia Tech did a great job of locking down the information flow, because I didn't hear from a Virginia Tech source that those guys are involved. I heard it through other channels, like someone from like Coastal Carolina side of things saying, oh yeah, our athletic director is interested in the Tech job. And you obviously knew Roan would be interested in the Virginia Tech job. I heard there were 20 some initial candidates, and they narrowed it down to like 2 or 3 at the end. I don't know if they were the other 2 or 3 on the list. I think when it comes to Roan, I think they were probably looking for more experience. I mean, he's only been at JMU for a couple of years. Had a smaller job before then. And I wouldn't have had an issue with either one of those guys, but I think White has a more complete resume, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think Teal mentioned him in one of his first articles. So you can't sit here and be like, this came out of left field. Yeah. It's like, no, he was one of the initial guys that was mentioned in this process. I think when a job like this comes open, a lot of the candidates are going to be the same for a lot of them, because it's like a football coaching cycles. Like who were the primary candidates last year beyond when James Franklin? It's like Silverfield, Golish, all those guys that were a group of 5 schools, group of 6 schools that weren't going to move up to the next level. They're ready for a bump up. Sumrall, going to Florida, Chesney, all these guys. It's sort of the same list, and the candidates for the same. I feel like it's kind of the same with athletic director. Maybe there's a little bit more regionality to it, because it helps to have experience in a certain area, or having a familiarity with the school, just knowing people through the job process, like any job. But no, I don't think it was too out of left field. I mean, the guy, his whole family is in athletic administration. Like you had to figure he was going to get a bigger job than FAU. And it's not like he was at FAU for like a minute. He was there for 8 years. I mean, that was a long stretch going back to 2018. A lot of success that he had there. So I think somebody was going to pluck him eventually, and it ended up being Virginia Tech.
Obviously, working with James Franklin, he said it himself in the press release, is going to be a huge, huge part of his tenure here at Virginia Tech. I know he's on the search committee, and I know there was a search committee, but do you think when you break it all down, it's fair to say if Brian White's the new athletic director of Virginia Tech, which obviously he is, he was James Franklin's pick to be the next athletic director?
I think James Franklin was the search committee.
Okay.
I mean, all due respect to all the other people on there, and they're tremendous business people, and very smart in their fields and everything like that. Nobody has said no to James Franklin yet.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not saying that's a bad strategy either, because I think he knows what he wants in a program. He knows his vision of how he wants to build it. And they've talked about alignments and alignment this, alignment that. I feel like it's the most frequently thrown out there buzzword that they've had since they arrived. Well, how else to better have alignment than letting your football coach essentially pick the AD, or have an outsized role in picking the AD? You have alignment there, and if you don't, you can also be like, well, you kind of picked him. This is on you if it doesn't work out at this stage. So, I think he had a huge influence in this, and I don't want to say he just like had ultimate say on it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was close to it.
I don't think he made the final decision, but if he had said, no, I don't want Mike White,
Brian White.
Brian White is athletic director.
How often are we going to do that, Mike White?
Drink your Diet Cokes because you're down the fridge out there in the hallway.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was probably one of those things where it was Franklin was like, I'm okay with this person, this person, and this person. And, they chose the best fit amongst that small group, I think.
So what's the power dynamic like there then? We talked about that a little bit the last couple of months, but James Franklin, again, I know you said, he wasn't the search committee, but probably had a pretty influential say. What is the power dynamic like then if you're, in theory, hiring your boss, but I mean, I just said it right there. If you're hiring your boss, he's not exactly your boss. Like, what's the power dynamic like there?
I think it's the same as it was when James Franklin was hired. He's the single most powerful person in the athletic department. That was the case even when Whit Babcock was here. That was the case even with the search committee and the board of trustees and all that stuff. I think he's the one in charge, and he's driving the decisions. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing. This is
nothing new. Frank Beamer was the most powerful person.
Exactly. I mean, football coaches, they don't pay them $10 million a year and then be like, but you're not in charge of things here. Right. No, you're in charge of it. And again, he's had very successful programs that he's run. He knows what it looks like. Virginia Tech has been in this lull for 15 years or so now. Put it in his hands, let him build it, and if you have to put guardrails along the way eventually, like, do it. But he's in charge, and I think that shows. And we'll see what this the result of this, but I have to think it'll probably work at least better than going 3-9 last year, or missing bowl games in a couple seasons like they have. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, all college football coaches at major schools, at least if they've shown that they're a good coach, they're going to have veto power to a certain extent about things. I mean,
you think Nick Saban didn't run Alabama when he was
there? You're telling me if Kirby Smart didn't like the way Alabama or Georgia was doing something, that he couldn't roll in there and be like, I don't think we should be doing this, guys.
Kirby Smart got open records laws changed in Georgia because they didn't like some of the stuff.
Well, Mac Brown got the scholarship rules changed in the state of North Carolina, right? I mean, so football coaches have a heck of a lot of power, until they don't win enough football games and then they get fired. But until then, they have a lot of power. So it's nothing new.
James Franklin is obviously a big-time college football coach. Brian White, though he inherited him, has also worked with another big-time head football coach. His name is Lane Kiffin. He was there his last 2 years at FAU. He left after the 2019 season to get Ole Miss. I get Lane Kiffin and James Franklin are two very different people, but I would argue they're two of the biggest personalities in all of college football. So when you work with somebody like that, how can that benefit somebody like Brian White, where you're working hand in hand? Granted, at the time you're at the Conference USA level, but I mean, we've worked with a guy like Lane Kiffin. How much could that benefit him when you're working with a guy like James Franklin now at Virginia Tech?
Absolutely, it benefits. I mean, he's worked with Dusty May on the basketball side too. I mean, he hired Dusty May, so he's used to working with major coaches, in both sports, and he's going to have a good understanding, not only through his own experience, but talking to his brother at Tennessee, and then talking to his other brother as a college basketball coach. And his dad dealing with major coaches through the years. He's going to have a good understanding of what these guys want, and how to deal with them. I'm sure there's a lot he could probably tell you about details of talking to coaches and how to handle coaches that you wouldn't even think about. So, he might have been in a smaller school per se, but he's dealt with some major personalities, and I don't want to come across this the wrong way, but sometimes an athletic director's job is managing egos. And all these guys have egos, and I'm not saying that's like a bad thing, but every person has an ego to a certain extent. Some a little more than others, of course. But that's a big part of an athletic director's job, and he's got a lot of experience in doing it.
Can you imagine being at FAU in 2018 and 2019? Your basketball coach is Dusty May, and your football coach is Lane Kiffin. I mean, are there two more polarizing figures in basketball and football today?
Certainly today.
I mean, maybe where Lane Kiffin's currently employed,
For Lane Kiffin in football, definitely. Dusty May, maybe less so, but he certainly drew some opinions from people during Michigan's run, and now everybody's speaking for him now. And strangely enough, the day that Dusty May takes the Dallas Mavericks job is the day that Brian White moves here to Virginia Tech. I mean, he's dealt with some big time coaches and personalities and egos, like we said, and I think you have to. I think you have to deal with all types of people as an athletic director, and that just sort of comes with the job. Not every coach is going to be exactly the same. You have to adjust your style to give them the best opportunity for them to succeed.
From a hire standpoint, obviously hires are going to come into play. Hopefully for Virginia Tech, it's not football anytime soon, but just kind of breaking down what he did at FAU. Obviously, you mentioned the Dusty May hire is certainly the highlight. Took FAU to the Final Four, goes to Michigan, wins a national championship, and again, now is the head coach of Cooper Flagg and the Dallas Mavericks. So, hire Dusty May down there, and then mention that he inherited Lane Kiffin, but he has made 3 football hires at FAU. 2 of them are actually pretty big-time names. Willie Taggart, after he was fired from Florida State, was hired at FAU. He was let go after 3 seasons. And then former future Virginia Tech head football coach Tom Herman was the second hire. He was there for 2 seasons before he was let go. And then Zach Kitley is the current head coach. They were 4-8 last season. So he's made 3 hires, 2 quick leashes, 2 big personalities, 2 big names, 3 big personalities. 2 of his hires were those. Football never truly really got going under his watch. I think that could be a fair concern. Again, don't want to nitpick everything left and right, but in your opinion, Chris, and then Andy, is that a fair concern to talk about the football struggles?
It's a fair concern. Willie Taggart was a guy who just did not do well at Florida State, and Herman was a guy you thought, okay, maybe Texas was a little bit too big for him, so if he drops back a level, it'll be better. But it wasn't. And
Talk about two just coaches whose stars completely faded.
Oh yeah, just like that,
Tom Herman at Texas, he's the next big thing. Everybody wanted to hire him, and Willie Taggart with his Gulf Coast offense at Oregon. And honestly, it all went south again in that 2018 against Virginia Tech.
Lethal simplicity.
It never got back.
Yep.
I mean, it was just like, oh man, they completely shut down this high octane offense. It's like, actually, that was one of the worst Virginia Tech defenses.
And maybe they should have learned something about Tom Herman
down.
when Bud Foster destroyed him in 2014. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a lot of Virginia Tech connection there. It is a concern. Hopefully he won't have to make a football hire here for a long time, with James Franklin starting his first season. But I'll say this, obviously they threw a lot of resources into their basketball program. And sometimes for a school their size, you have to make a choice on what you're going to do. So, I don't know exactly what their resources are at FAU relative to their competition. And let's not forget they took a step up in conferences there too. And I seriously doubt they're putting as much into their football program as like some of their competition, like Memphis, when they joined the American, and some other schools like that. So you would have to do a deep dive on resources and how much they're dedicating to football relative to their peers and how much they're dedicating to basketball relative to their peers. But, I'll say this, he kept Dusty May for quite a while. I mean, Dusty May even hung around for another year after that Final Four year, right? So, and I expect they wouldn't have done that unless they were throwing a tremendous amount of support into their basketball program. So that's my guess. Every job is different, right? Every job is different. It's probably a little bit more difficult to hire a football coach at FAU than it is for Virginia Tech. And again, unless we know the exact resources, it's difficult to draw a conclusion. But yes, I would have had many questions for him during the interview process about that if I was part of it.
I mean, you said it. Unless something goes terribly wrong here, he's not going to make a football coaching hire here for a while. I think basketball could come up very quickly here, depending how Mike Young does next year, depending how long he wants to coach. I mean, he's nearing retirement age at this point, especially when you see some of these basketball coaches get out of the game now because they're just frustrated by the landscape. The football part of it is a little concerning, I think. And I think if you look at it, you go, well, Virginia Tech is hiring an athletic director to get football right, and his last stop, they never really had football right. And the basketball thing was great and all that, but this is a football first school. You talk about making choices. Well, Virginia Tech makes a choice. Football's first. Football eats first, and then everybody else gets the scraps after that. We'll see how it goes. A little bit of a concern, but again, I don't think all of it is on the athletic director. I think you put people in place to do a job, and some of them just aren't up to it. Sometimes the resources aren't enough to compete at the level. They did switch from the CUSA to the American Conference. That's a tougher football conference, and tougher to make hay and get high up in the standings. So I'd have to take a closer look at it. And again, I think you hire him for some of the other things that he has to do here, not necessarily getting football right, because I think the primary job of that and the hire that they made to do that was James Franklin last fall.
I want to talk about that a little bit. So he got FAU into the American in 2023. Not saying Virginia Tech is going to move conferences anytime soon, but as we go into this new era of college athletics and continue throughout this new era of college athletics where 2030 is looming, and I don't know if there's going to be a super league in the future, but that is naturally a conversation, and everybody eventually wants to be in the Big Ten and the SEC. So how can that be helpful as he leads Virginia Tech into this new era here in Blacksburg?
Well, he was there when Florida Atlantic moved from the conference. I don't know if he got them into the American Conference.
Better way.
Most athletic directors don't have anything to do with
I think Florida Atlantic's location got them into the American Conference. I think the experience of transitioning conferences helps. Like you said, though, I think there are other factors that play into whether a league will. I mean, you have to be receptive if the opportunity is there. You have to get things, straight to be able to make a change like that. But ultimately, I think the decision comes down to whether those conferences want you or not. If they're looking, they're not going to be like, well, Virginia Tech's AD sweet talked us a lot more. We're going to take them over Miami. Like, no, Miami has the location. It has the national championships in the past. It is a better program right now, higher profile, better TV numbers. I mean, that would be the choice. It wouldn't go by, how persuasive an AD can be. So I think there's a limited effect that an athletic director can have in that, but it doesn't hurt to have that experience.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, looking at him even further. So looking at his resume a little bit. Yeah, so Danny White's his brother, the AD at Tennessee. Not related to the Danny White that's currently employed at Virginia Tech. His brother, you mentioned, obviously, is the head men's basketball coach at Georgia. Chris, do you remember the Mike White, Virginia Tech basketball connection? Can you name that from a couple years ago?
It's the NCAA tournament, right?
Good call, yeah.
In
at Florida, 2021.
That's right.
Yeah, in the
That's
bubble.
right. That's
Beat
right.
Virginia Tech in the bubble in 21.
Yeah, that was a...
Where'd they play that? Was that a
Hinkle?
Hinkle. Okay.
Yeah. Wasn't there didn't Tech make a last second 3-pointer?
A last second
Nahim
3-pointer
to
to
go
send it to overtime,
overtime,
I think,
right.
right?
Great
Yeah.
pull, Andy. Great pull. Yeah, Nahim
I don't
Ali in the
remember who it
corner.
was, but
Nahim
It was
Ali.
Nahim Ali.
okay.
Yeah, lost in overtime. I think it was 81-70. That was the last time the Hokies went to the NCAA tournament. So.
No, they won the ACC the
I'm
next
sorry.
year.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
First time Mike Young went to the
Yeah,
NCAA
yes,
tournament.
correct. Yeah.
That's on me. What's that? Last at large. That's an EP error on the podcast. So that is on me. So with that being said, let's step aside and hear from one of our sponsors here on Tech Sideline.
This Tech Sideline video comes to you from the Tech Solutions studio. Tech Solutions, located in Arlington, Virginia, provides specialized CETA engineering and financial advisory services to the Department of Defense and Intelligence community. Based on the philosophy of only hiring the best of the best, we pride ourselves on being customer and mission focused. A Washington Post top workplace winner in 2024 and 2025, we're always looking for talented and motivated individuals to join our team. Visit techsolutionsva.com/careers to learn more. That is techsolutionsva.com/careers.
And welcome back to episode 488 of the Tech Sideline podcast. So before we went to break, we were breaking down the family lineage of Brian White. And I think during the break, Andy had kind of tracked down some points about his brother Danny, who's currently the AD at Tennessee. So I'm going to give you the floor and let you roll here, Mr. Bitter.
Well, 2 points. So a couple of things we were talking about in the break about Florida Atlantic's football success. It's not like this is a historic program. It's been around since 2004. Founded, Howard Schnellenberger was the first coach they had there. They have 2 10-win seasons, both by Lane Kiffin when he was there. Seems like Lane Kiffin might know what he's doing as a head coach. So they sit here and say that, they haven't had a lot of football success lately. Yeah, they haven't had a lot of football success in their entire history, just a couple of winning seasons over those 20-plus years. The other point I want to make, and we talk about Danny White at Tennessee, there's been a famously tough matchup to schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Tech and Tennessee, they just have never been able to do it. I don't think there's really the impetus on Tennessee's side to want to do it. If you have 2 brothers in the AD spots, do you think maybe they might be able to talk to get that series together? I mean, it's a series that makes so much sense.
Yep.
And you sit here and you talk about, what kind of regional non-conference games can you play that both fans could enjoy? They've only played it recently. Did they play anything before Battle of Bristol? I can't remember if there's history there, but
The
2 bowl games.
yeah, the
94 and 2009.
it's
With
always
Lane
been
Kiffin,
it's
actually,
always
yeah.
been neutral.
Yeah, with Kiffin.
Yeah.
It's also been always been neutral site games, and they did this huge thing at Bristol, which was cool, and I'm glad I covered it, and I never want to cover a football game there again. But how cool would it be to see these 2 teams play in Neyland and Lane and go back there and have a home and home, and you just wonder if having these guys in place as the ADs, can they grease the wheels a little bit on this thing and make it happen?
I think when the 2 teams play each other this year in women's basketball, we should have both athletic directors on the podcast and talk about
should,
it.
yeah.
I'm
There
sure
you
they'll
go.
go for that. Yeah.
I mean, there's always a possibility, Duke's Mayo Bowl is the one in I forgot what the sponsor was for a second. I was going to say Belk Bowl, Continental Tire Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
In Charlotte. I mean, isn't that an SEC matchup?
I believe.
Well, it's Big
yeah.
Ten. It was Big Ten recently. It switches every year. It feels like it feels like there could be some kind of bowl lineup if Virginia Tech can get good enough, because Tennessee's always kind of in that, not quite top tier of the SEC. The next grouping there, it feels like they could meet in the bowl game at some point if Tech can get back.
Heupel's going to be quietly on the hot seat if they're not back in playoff contention this year.
Which is weird because he saved that program
Right.
He did.
from just complete disarray. And was it Danny White who hired him?
Yes, because they're
Yes,
UCF
Okay.
together.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, together they saved that program, and now people are going to be angry at them for.
By the way, there's this. They have not played in Blacksburg since 1911. By the way,
Yeah, I knew
Not
there was.
played in
I knew there was
Blacksburg.
some game
we
way
weren't
in the
covered.
past.
Look, man, Virginia Tech scored 36 in that game. You know how hard it was to score 36 points in
1911?
But what about that 5-0 win by Virginia Tech in 1899?
in Knoxville.
6-4 in 1896.
Everything's neutral site. Yeah, since 1937, the three matchups have been neutral sites. So get it on these campuses. I mean, I think when you're trying to sell tickets, quit moving these games off to off. Like I know there's more money, but man,
The Wisconsin game in Charlotte.
I know. I sent you guys
somebody
a
threw
site
that
from a Badgers. I can't remember the fan or reporters. Like they need to move this game to Blacksburg.
He was a fan,
Like
yeah.
I agree. I think it should be in.
Yeah.
It should be in Lane Stadium and Camp Randall. And
Yeah,
if
it
they
never
move the
sh-
Camp Randall game to Lambeau Field, I'd be disappointed.
It's an
about it.
absolute sellout to move that game for
Yeah.
a little bit more money. It's a sellout to the fan base. It's a sellout to the town of Blacksburg. Blacksburg keeps getting more dead and more dead every summer as they put more and more classes online. And so the local businesses are hurt because this town, it's tough to sustain itself when the students aren't here. So not only are you taking away more money from businesses in the summer because you're not putting summer school or as many summer school classes in person anymore, now you're taking away a home game from them moving to Atlanta. So a bunch of millionaires can make more money, right? Like that doesn't sit well with me, with the fan base.
Well, I mean, I wonder if the calculus with this changes at all now that you've seen a $75 million donation come in. You've seen other 8-figure donations come in. Do you need to move a game like that for a couple extra million?
Right.
And I'm not sitting here saying a couple extra million is like nothing.
Right.
Like, of course, that's huge money in any athletic department. And think what a couple extra million could do if you're like, hey, let's just throw that at wrestling or something like that. Like that would help quite a bit.
Or what if you beat
and acquire
Wisconsin at
players.
home and then excite the fan base?
Right.
Right.
That's the other part of it is I think you try to sell these season ticket packages. If you keep removing some of the best and most interesting games and put them at neutral sites, what makes me want to renew my tickets then? So I can see, Georgia Tech and BC at
The
home.
Citadel?
Like Wisconsin, this Wisconsin game has been 30 years in the making. Just keep it on campus. I think if, a Tennessee series on the home sites, that'd be so fun. It'd be so fun.
I don't know why he signed. That decision was made last fall or something when it was announced to move it to Atlanta. Like, did anybody have veto power over that decision? Did he have to submit that to anybody? Because I have a feeling right now with an athletics committee overseeing things, I don't think that I don't know that would have been able to go through.
Well, think about the big ones they've had recently. West Virginia, home and home was fun. And if you did that in Maryland, and the FedEx game was fine that one year, but it wasn't as cool as going to the stadiums themselves. Ohio State, going to the Horseshoe is probably the most memorable game I've covered since I've been here.
Really?
And I imagine it's among the most memorable games for a large portion of fans that have traveled for these road games. And then Ohio State coming here for that opener when the place was, ready to explode. They were leading at halftime of that game. And the atmosphere in Lane Stadium was one of the best that I've seen since I've been here. And then Brewer gets hurt. And there's just no shot in the second half. There might not have been a shot anyway because Ohio State was really good.
LSU, Texas A&M, Nebraska.
These are all games that people talk about, like historic, memorable moments in Lane Stadium. And I just think you lose some of that when you move it to these neutral sites, and it's just so antiseptic and it's just blasé. This is part of the problem with the playoff too. Is you have these really cool home sites in the first round and everybody's excited for it. And then you move it to these just bland, huge NFL stadiums. And they're making gobs of money on it. But I think you lose a little bit of the soul of college football when you do stuff like that.
South Carolina was another home and home that recently was off the books. Like, I get it.
Penn
obviously,
State would have been crazy.
That would have been awesome.
Get it back on.
Get it
who
back,
who
man.
doesn't want to see that matchup right
Exactly.
now? For
who is that? Sorry,
Penn State.
Penn State, yeah. Mhm.
For a hate watch, if you're a Penn State fan, you would love to have James Franklin come in there, or you would love to come here and try to stick it to him here. I think, I'm not the AD, but whoever the AD, he comes in here and go talk to the person at Penn State, try to make that happen. That'd be a fun one.
If James Franklin let him do that.
Like, if this was professional wrestling,
Right.
they would understand. They would understand the
Absolutely.
heat behind a rivalry like that,
Yep.
and they would milk it for all the money that it's
You
worth.
build it for a year.
Right. This is Austin versus Steve McMahon or Vince McMahon here. These are some of the great things, and they would build it and build it and build it. And what do you hear with all these old wrestlers, retired wrestlers? Is like, was there any money in it for us? That's why we did this whole thing. Lean into this. Lean into the villain role if you're James Franklin and going back into state college.
play the heel, no problem.
That'd be awesome. They could play the NWO music when he comes out. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry.
Now, I will say this. If you look back at Penn State's non-conference schedules when Franklin was there, until they played Oregon this past year.
But now Oregon's a Big Ten opponent.
That's right. That's right. It is a conference opponent now. So, yeah, his non-conference schedules were always bad. I don't think he likes to play good non-conference
Like the Citadel.
opponents.
The Citadel, yeah.
Right.
The Bulldogs.
So I don't think this is going to be an athletic director thing. I think this is going to be a James Franklin thing.
But they do have to have one power conference team.
You're right.
And Notre Dame takes care of that in the early going next year and the year after that. But then you do need to fill it out. I forget what years they need somebody still, because they have Alabama on the books, they have Wisconsin on the books, Ole Miss in the future. I'm trying to remember who else. Is it they canceled the South Carolina one,
Canceled
correct?
South Carolina. I'll pull it up.
Oh, did you say Ole Miss?
Ole Miss,
Ole Miss
is on
sounds
there.
good. So they need somebody in 2028. They have Notre Dame. 2029 they have Arizona and Maryland. 2030 they have Arizona. So they don't need anybody. Technically, they don't need anybody any year through 2037.
I guarantee you
play
some
that-
of those years where they play 2 Power 4 teams, like one of those will end up getting
The
canceled.
odds that Arizona series gets played, I feel like are very low.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a weird one when they scheduled it, and I don't quite know why they would continue to play it now. It's not going to draw huge TV numbers. It's a weird travel game. It's not like a rivalry game that people are clamoring for. Nobody's saying let's get out to Tucson? Is that where Arizona is?
Like if you're going to send me somewhere west of the Mississippi, I want a better destination. I'm not hating on Tucson, but Arizona.
And nobody in Tucson is going, let's get to Blacksburg.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's not high on their priority list.
You know, Virginia Tech and Penn State have never played in football.
I
That's
know.
crazy
That's why
to
it was
me.
so cool when they set up that matchup.
That was what, 2020 and 2025? I think South Carolina replaced the second one.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and with that, let's step aside one more time. So I'm sorry. Courtesy of Tyrus Homes here on the Tech Sideline podcast.
Are you ready for a custom home tailored to your distinctive lifestyle? At Tyrus Homes, a leading custom home builder in the New River Valley, we pride ourselves on crafting exceptional residences that our clients love to call home. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a growing family in search of more room, or an active adult seeking a relaxing retreat, looking for a high-end custom home that offers luxury and sophistication, we have the perfect solution for you. Discover how we can bring your dream home to life at tyrushomes.com. That's TYRIS homes.com.
And welcome back to episode 488 of the Tech Sideline podcast. We were talking about scheduling a little bit. We're going to shift the focus back to Brian White now, who's the new athletic director, obviously, at Virginia Tech. And, one of the big things that obviously I think is probably one of the first things, Chris, still to do on his to-do list, he takes over officially tomorrow on June 24th, is to hire a head of the Hokie Club. That has been something that has been in the works for quite some time, but that's somebody that is probably going to be put in place over the next couple weeks. So is the timing a coincidence in the slightest that you bring Brian White in now? And to kind of piggyback off of that question, like how much, just to be blunt, like how much is he going to be involved in selecting that person in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, he'll be involved. I don't think that's the main. I think the main reason you get him in early is that he's entrenched before the fall semester starts, and he gets to know all his coaches and everything like this. But this is a good secondary reason to have him hired early. He's not going to make the hire because they've already started the interview process, and I'm sure they're down to their list of finalists or semifinalists or whatever. But now he can be involved with it. And they can have direct conversations with those people that are still in the running for the Hokie Club job. It will be university advancement that makes the hire, but they're not going to hire somebody that White comes in and said, "Well, I can't work with that guy." Right? So they're going to put their heads together over the next week and make a hire, and that'll be the next major hire that's made at Virginia Tech is the head of the Hokie Club, and that'll be a very important one.
Hockey club hot board. Who do you got?
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't even have an athletic director.
I
hot board.
don't. I'm not going to have any candidates for a hockey club head. Yeah, but as you mentioned, all these positions work hand in hand.
Yeah.
And it's all, the gears all have to fit for this thing to work. And, I think James Franklin will have probably a say in the hockey club. Yeah, he's, again, the most powerful person in the athletic department. But I think Brian White will work more directly with the hockey club head. And I think that's why it's important. Again, it goes back to alignment. You have to have those people of the same, pulling in the same direction for this program to work. And I think that's maybe been an issue in the past. Not necessarily that people are doing their own things, maybe just different visions on how they want to go about business. And I think if everybody's, doing it the same way, that's probably success for the program.
We shouldn't underestimate the fact that Franklin is very involved with fundraising. Like, there were times at Penn State where he would bypass the athletic director and go talk to fundraising directly. Basically, we heard he was checking in directly with the hockey club like twice a week. When he first got to Virginia Tech, and probably ever since, and kind of going right past his athletic director there. Now, Brandon Witt was a lame duck athletic director, and everybody knew that. But Penn State, it wasn't necessarily the case. So he's a guy that, like, he puts the pressure on everybody around him to do better, and that includes fundraisers. So whatever fundraisers Virginia Tech hires, they're going to have to deal with Franklin directly. That's part of the process if you work for Virginia Tech now in a major position. You're going to be dealing with James Franklin.
Yeah. Speaking of selecting people, it seemed like this is from the BOV meeting a couple weeks ago, but one of the tea leaves that was, I forget where it was dropped, whether it was in the meeting itself or in a story later, but it seems like the director of athletics, now Brian White, is going to maybe select the Hokie Ventures CEO. Is that something you guys have kind of garnered a little bit over the last couple weeks?
I think it'll be like a combo deal. Like, I think that athletics committee and that group, your Jay Pearsons and your Mayholes and people like that, they're going to be heavily involved in that. But yes, I'm sure the athletic director now will play a role, because that needs to be someone that works hand in hand. It has to be a good fit for the organization that is being set up.
If I'm correct about the structure, the AD is on the board of Hokie Ventures.
Right.
So he'll have a say just from that standpoint.
Yeah.
But I don't know the reporting lines exactly. I don't know exactly how that whole thing will work, but part of it is the AD can call on Hokie Ventures for funds whenever he wants, right? He can make those requests like that, at any point. So again, it has to work together for it to work, and you can't have people at odds in those two positions. So it would make sense if he had a voice in that.
And they've still got to fill out the board there, because that there's going to be, the athletic director is going to be on the board. A couple of Virginia Tech people are going to be on the board, but there has to be some independent board members as well. So they're also in the process of filling out what the board's going to look like.
No doubt. Okay, so just one more thing real fast. So kind of looking at the athletic director, or the athletic department, I should say, as a whole, and this is just kind of a generic question when it comes to hiring an AD anywhere. But when you bring in a new, I'm just kind of curious myself, when you bring in a new AD, obviously there are people that work under the athletic director at every which school. Obviously there are a lot of people here at Virginia Tech. There are a couple people here that predate Whit Babcock, but a lot of people here were Whit's people. So when you break it down that way, obviously this is just the start of a process, but how long does it take to get quote unquote Brian White's people in place, whether it be from Florida Atlantic or maybe somewhere else?
It'll take a good year. I mean, if you think back to Whit's tenure, he brought Desiree Reed-Francois with him immediately.
Right.
And after that, it was about a year-long process to work with the people that are already there and figure out who could work together and whose services were required and whose were not, whether they were good fits. Maybe in some cases you're just waiting an extra year for somebody's contract to expire, and then you don't renew it, and then they're replaced. Sure. So it's not going to be like, by the end of July he's restructured the entire athletic department, right? It's going to be a gradual process. Like they're going to hire a hockey club person, and then that person is going to restructure the hockey club, and then if you want to restructure any departments at Virginia Tech, then you're going to hire a head of that department first, and then the restructuring under it, begins then. So I think it will take about a year to see like most of the turnover that we're going to see.
Okay.
I feel like it's a little bit different situation that Brian is walking into. When Whit came on, Tom Gabbard had been here for a really long time. He was nearing retirement. I forget exactly how long he continued to work until he retired. John Boleyn had been in the program for 20 plus years at that point. So I think there's a lot more carryover previously than perhaps there is now, especially, John Boleyn retiring here at the end of this month.
Yeah.
So that opens up a spot. I think the Danny White that's here effectively is taking that spot, isn't he?
Danny's going to be like oversee football now. Well, he's overseeing football for now. Whether that continues under the new AD.
And John wasn't
we'll see.
he was off of football from what it was.
Right.
So sport responsibilities, but maybe just in terms of hierarchy.
Hierarchy's number 2 now.
I think, I don't know if that means there are more spots that will be open or less security that people would have in their current positions or being shifted around than previously. But I think it's just a slightly different situation than it was in 2012.
Press conferences tomorrow at Lane Stadium. That is at 10:30 in the morning. So with that being said, we'll have a lot of coverage surrounding that, obviously, as we approach late June. What is coming up on TechSideline.com? We're in the heart of summer now, and obviously the content does not stop. So
I've got a column scheduled this afternoon for my thoughts on the hire. I was going to write it later in the week. We just didn't know what day the hire was going to get announced. Maybe I should wait until after the press conference to write it and just to see what he says. But I'll probably go ahead and write it today anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, they got the introductory press conference tomorrow. We'll be there for that. We'll have full coverage of that. I know David's out of town, but we'll handle it. He handled the Board of Visitor meeting when I was
when we were out of
so
town. Yeah.
Fair
This
trade-off.
is the trade-off here. I got opponent previews leading up to the ACC kickoff. I'm actually going on vacation for 2 weeks, starting next week. So
Thank God it happened this week.
yeah, exactly. It would have been bad timing if it happened next week. So yeah, we'll keep churning those out, and that'll lead straight up into the kickoff. And I mean, the kickoff's going to be honest before we know it.
Yeah, 3 weeks away. What do you got, Nick? You want to tease some of the stuff in Charlotte, too, coming up here in the next couple weeks?
Sure. Let's do it. First, we have Talking with Teal in person on Thursday. Of course, he's coming down for the introductory press conference. So we'll have him in, that's Thursday morning, right? 9:30, bright and early. And then Friday, we have a special guest coming in. Will be interviewing 2 guys that are very in a niche group of Virginia Tech athletics history, but it'll be a cool podcast that we're very excited for. And then at ACC kickoff, of course, we'll have all of the players, Franklin, and special guests and podcasts down there, and we'll be there the whole week. And I'm really hoping the ACC allows me to bring down our new hosting desk.
Yeah, that'd be fun. ACC kickoff is one of the more fun weeks of the year when it comes to content stuff. So looking forward to that in a couple weeks. But where are you going on vacation in the meantime, Andy, the next 2 weeks?
Heading home to Minnesota for a week, and we're going out to California for a week after that.
Oh, yeah, Disneyland. Yeah. And then you're here, AD stuff, and then we'll go to Charlotte in a couple weeks. So.
Yeah, I'm going to Atlanta for July 4th weekend.
Oh, cool.
For Braves Mets, that whole series.
Okay.
And I'll fit something else in somewhere else before the season
Sounds
starts.
good.
Just haven't decided yet.
All right, Brian White, the new athletic director of Virginia Tech, again, press conference on Wednesday, June 24th. That is at 10:30 in Lane Stadium. Talking with Teal coming up on Thursday. Plenty more coming up later this week as well. So for Andy Bitter, Chris Coleman, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long from episode 488 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Have a great rest of your Tuesday afternoon, and we'll talk to you very soon.